Hey folks, it's William with All Solar Texas here with a special edition for you. We're out here in the beautiful Bryan-College Station area, and we're going to be visiting our local warehouse here for one of our installers, and we're going to be talking about off-grid systems. If you're like the rest of the country, you've been watching what's been going on in the Ukraine. Well, guess what? Russia's invaded, and we're going to start to sanction not only Russia, but also their oil supply. And so that's going to lead to higher gas prices. We're already seeing record high gas and diesel and fuel prices all around the country. You could expect your prices to go up. So what can you do about it? Let's go inside and see what they have to say. Hey Bryson, thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate this interview. I know all of our customers at All Solar Texas really appreciate it. So why don't you start by kind of telling me a little bit about yourself and your background?
Great, Will. Well, my name is Bryson, and I am a sales manager and designer for Texas Green Energy. I've been with this company for over 3 years and in the solar industry for over 14. We serve the College Station Bryan region and the greater Texas as well.
So what are some of the reasons that customers decide to go off-grid?
Well, off-grid is appealing to many people after the freeze last year. I know personally I had no power for 7 days, and many were also in the same situation. So going off-grid gives homeowners the ability to keep the lights on during an outage and to control their energy usage.
What type of equipment is typically used in an off-grid system?
So going off-grid is very similar to a grid tie system. The difference would be primarily an inverter which can function off-grid and a battery to supply the power to power the home when off-grid. The biggest changes for an off-grid system compared to a standard grid tie system is the inverter, which will be acting very much like a generator, and the battery, which will store the power to supply you when the grid is down.
So what are some of the benefits of an off-grid system and going solar and utilizing an off-grid system?
The benefits of off-grid include having that backup power when you need it. It will give you the ability to actually do that, to function completely off-grid and no longer be tied to what's occurring in the energy market. And then the other benefit is that if you're building a new home and don't want to pay the expense of having a grid line drawn out to the home, we can offset that cost to make the solar overall more affordable.
So what are some of the drawbacks? I know that there's a lot that is a benefit to going off grid, but there's also some drawbacks as well. So what are some of those?
Some of the drawbacks, really there are few, the greatest being that it is more expensive. Now if you have the need or the want, it totally makes sense, and if you're building a new home and would like to avoid the charges related to having them run the grid connection to your home, that helps offset the cost of the off-grid very well.
A lot of customers are interested in going off-grid, but what are some of the alternatives to going off-grid if cost becomes a barrier?
Alternatives to off-grid would be to go with a grid tie system.
How about a generator?
Generators are great. The only issue with generators compared to the solar option is that they are fuel dependent. So if a scenario brings us to a point where fuel's hard to get, the generator can't serve you if it doesn't have fuel.
So what are some of the cost factors that vary between a grid-tied system where you're still connected to the utility and have utility bills versus an off-grid system where you're completely energy independent?
Sure. The equipment's being asked to do a lot more, so the equipment is more expensive. Also, you need to rewire the electrical panel to accommodate a critical loads panel. These are the circuits and the things that you'll continue to have power with in the absence of a grid, or in the case of an entire off-grid home. All of the circuits related to that will need to be part of that solar system. So essentially that's the battery and the rewiring are the two major differences or costs from a grid tie system.
If I'm a customer and I'm interested in going off-grid, what can I expect the process to be? What does it actually look like?
Very good question. So we would send out a site assessor to take a look at the conditions of the home in terms of the orientations of the roof, shade, what the client's needs are going to be. And with that, we can design a system that should provide enough power all around, both in solar and in generating ability, to meet their needs. Once we've done that, we'll order the equipment, get the installation done, and handle any and all permits to get the system up and running.
Are there any incentives to a customer that's considering going solar or possibly going off-grid?
There's multiple incentives. So the federal government has for some years now, and it's approaching the tail end unless they expand it, but they offer 26% federal tax rebate. Now that applies to the cost of the system. So particularly if you're going off-grid, because it does tend to be a little more expensive, that federal tax credit will help reduce those costs.
If I'm a customer and I don't necessarily have the cash to go right in my pocket and put into an off-grid system, what are some of the financing options, if any, that y'all offer customers that choose to finance?
With solar financing, you have to consider that the life of solar is well over 20 years. So financing gives you the option to spread that cost over the life of the system. Some things that are factors to consider include the interest rate, the APR, and the monthly payment. For many people, that will allow them to go solar without breaking the bank and to spread it over the life of the system. Some financing partners, we have term lengths between 1 and 12 years. These are great if you'd like to pay the system off sooner and ultimately save a little bit of interest cost. If that doesn't work for a client, we have options that extend as far as 20 years. Those focus on keeping the monthly cost low so that, again, you can spread that over the life of the system.
What are some of the most frequently asked questions that customers call you up and ask?
Many of the people who reach out to me have 3 questions. What would it take to get my home completely off grid? What is the system price? And what is the charge, if any, to do a site assessment to see what our needs are? Go off grid, you just have to have the right components, and the costs will vary related to that. A general cost for a battery system that would meet most people's need probably lands somewhere in the range of $40,000 to $60,000. Now, what someone's specific needs may reduce that slightly or may increase that further. What matters is what you're trying to achieve.
Well, you've been watching world events, and I know all of our customers have been watching world events, and so we see what's going on in the Ukraine with the Russian invasion. Russia is a big oil exporter for us. Along with inflation, we're really looking at cost increases for fuels nationally and internationally. So how can some of those increased costs be avoided by going solar and looking towards an off-grid system option?
By going off-grid, you're cutting the utility completely out of your energy decisions and their costs that are associated with it. Now, fuel prices have been rising and are likely to continue, world events withstanding. And so by having the sun fueling your home, you don't have to be worried about the costs of propane delivery or diesel or gas. Great. Well, thank you, Will. It's been a pleasure. So people can reach out to my company, Texas Green Energy. We'll be glad to see how we can help them. Or they can reach out to All Solar Texas, and we'll be glad to work with you in partnership to make that come true for them.
All right, folks, that wraps it up for today. Thank you so much for joining this session. Before you head off, please make sure to hit the subscribe button, and don't forget to tap on that notification bell. Also, shoot us a call, send us a text message, shoot us an email, check out our website. We're here for you. We're here to help you claim your energy independence once and for all. Can't wait to hear from you. Thank you, and God bless.